Welcome to Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Michael Cox, and I am the worship associate for our virtual service today alongside our minister, Zachary Vincent. Before we start, let's pause to acknowledge that members of our congregation occupy the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of Coast Salish tribes. The homelands of the Squamish, Duwamish, Klallam, and Chimacum people were ceded under duress during the Point Elliott and Point No Point treaties. We are grateful guests on these lands and affirm indigenous sovereignty both past and present. This acknowledgement does not substitute for the need to build authentic relationships with modern-day members of these tribes and to learn about their living culture and history. Our faith community is sustained by the generosity of our members. Your contribution will nourish the spiritual growth of our community through weekly worship and ongoing programs that cultivate connection, belonging, sharing, and caring. Included in the video description and displayed on the screen is information to make contribution to Cedars through our PayPal account. Please take time either now or later in the service to make a contribution to help sustain Cedars. Your gifts are greatly appreciated. Cedars is committed to being a welcoming and inclusive community. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, and skin tones that come together in our uniqueness, we welcome you. In all the ways you experience and express gender, we welcome you. In the beauty of who you love and how you love, we welcome you. With all the religious and ethical traditions that inform your spiritual life, we welcome you. Whether you come feeling whole, feeling broken, or anywhere in between, we welcome you. No matter how long you've been away, nor how soon you will return, we welcome you. You are invited to join us with an open mind, loving heart, and willing hands. We welcome you today and always. I'm making this recording on Wednesday evening before we know who have won the presidential election. I know the past several months has been a challenge for all of us, including myself. The uncertainty of the pandemic, social and racial unrest, and the inability to meet people in person, and the crazy nature of the election, among others. Like many of you, I've been through many election cycles. This is my 12th presidential election where I could vote. While I remember being anxious about the other elections, I never remember asking myself whether the people on the other side were bad people. We all know people who are on the other side, and many times they are our family members and friends. They're not bad people, are they? It disturbed me that I was actually asking that question. So what was going on? I realized that I normally am the one saying issues are complicated. They're gray areas, that we need to put ourselves in others' shoes, that people are good at their core. But then I started to realize that my basic core beliefs about right versus wrong, good versus bad, moral versus immoral, and humane versus inhumane were being challenged. I struggled with the idea that maybe people who did not agree with me were actually bad people. I thought, well, once the election is over, everything will be fine because my side will win. Harmony will return to the universe. It all came to a head last night when I was watching results of the election via Zoom with my family and neighbors. I was hopeful. Then the results started to come in. Like many of us, I started to ask, how can this happen again? Started to ponder, what does this country stand for? Do we have any shared values? How can people not see the path we are on is not sustainable for all the reasons I do not have to tell you? I went to bed depressed. I got up around 4, started to ask, what can I and what can we do? I concluded that I did not want to live my remaining years on this earth without trying to see if I could help heal the very open divisions we have in our country. Even if Joe Biden wins the presidential election, we have lots of work to do. I believe it is mine and our responsibility to start discussing what we are going to do to move our country forward. While I know the agents of hate, divisiveness, and intolerance are there, I also know they're the agents of love, compassion, and inclusion. So what next? First, I think we need to come together and ask ourselves, as a congregation, what we will do over the next year to try and heal our country and advance those values we believe in. I think we can start by having a town hall, virtually of course, to identify 2 to 3 actions that we can move forward with that bring us together and reflect our principles. We have a lot of smart, passionate, and good people in this congregation, and I'm convinced we can identify those areas where we want to focus our efforts. Second, we can reach out to other faith communities in our area and ask that we try to find common ground and join hands to try to heal the open wounds so apparent in our nation. Third, we can host movies, book groups, lectures for the wider community that provide inspiration on how individuals and communities can make a difference. Finally, we can pledge to take that extra effort to reach out to one another, to listen and comfort each other during these challenging times. Given the current challenge with meeting in person, it will not be easy to accomplish these actions. I, for one, am ready to do the hard work it will take to move us forward. Our children, grandchildren, parents, and friends are watching us to see how we will respond and just write off the millions of our fellow citizens as bad people. That is not an option. That is not in keeping with the values that we have as UUs. I dedicate the lighting of our chalice to gathering the courage and energy to put our values to work, to put our country on the path of justice, inclusion, and love.
As we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because they are our brothers and sisters, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness because that is how we will all become the best that we can be.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll be a land building up ancient cities, raising up devastations from old, restoring ruins of generations. Oh, we'll build a land of people so bold. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, brothers, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come, build a land where the mantles of praises resound from spirits once faint and once weak, where like oaks of righteousness stand her people. Oh, come build the land, my people we seek. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
I invite us into this space of worship with these words by the Sufi poet Mevlana Rumi. Out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other does not make sense. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across that door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep.
We worship with open hearts, nurture a learning spirit, serve justice with compassion, and love without judgment. We worship with open hearts, nurture our learning spirit, serve justice with compassion, and love without judgment. We worship with open hearts, nurture our learning spirit, serve justice with compassion, and love without judgment.
Hello, friends. I'm going to tell you a story based on a classic children's nursery rhyme today. You've probably all heard, in fact, I'm sure you've all heard this nursery rhyme. It goes, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horsemen and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. So that's the classic nursery rhyme. It's not quite right. And so I'm going to tell you the rest of Humpty's story. And my story is based on a children's book called After the Fall by Dan Satat. I encourage you to check it out. So, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horsemen and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. But what the king's horsemen and the king's men could do was take Humpty to the hospital, where doctors and nurses gradually over time put Humpty together again. Lots of glue, some rest, some advanced eggshell technology, and Humpty was as good as new. Now, part of my story is, what the heck was an egg doing on a wall? It's not an obvious place for eggs to hang out, but Humpty loved the sky. Humpty loved birds, he loved clouds, he loved watching things fly by. So he had a ladder specially made on this wall, and every day he climbed up there to his happy place. And he sat and he watched and he watched and he yearned and he was happy. But one day, while he was up there, Humpty had a strange feeling, a kind of jiggly feeling inside, and he didn't know what to do with it. And it was that jiggly feeling that caused Humpty to lose his balance and fall off that wall. So after Humpty got out of the hospital and the outside of Humpty was as good as new, Humpty was scared. He was too afraid to get back on the wall. The fall had taken away the thing that he loved the most, but he just couldn't find a way to make himself climb that ladder and get back on that wall. So Humpty made do. He read books about birds. He drew birds in his notebook. He dreamed about birds. And every day he went to the wall and he looked at the ladder and he looked up and he sighed and he went home because he couldn't do it. After he'd fallen, he couldn't get back up there. So he had another idea, and he decided to make the best paper airplane in the whole world. And he would use the paper airplane to simulate that feeling of flying like a bird. And so he started his work, and he made a paper airplane. It was not good. And he made another one and another one. If any of you have ever made paper airplanes, you will know that it is harder than you think to make a good paper airplane. So days and weeks went by and Humpty kept working until he made the perfect paper airplane. And Humpty took it outside, he let it go. And you know what happened? That paper airplane landed right on the top of the wall. Oh. Humpty went over to the ladder. He looked up at the wall. He was terrified. But he looked up at the wall again, and there was his perfect paper airplane. He thought, I have to do it. And so he stepped on the first rung of the ladder, and he could feel his heart beating. He stepped on the second one and the third, and he did not look down. And he kept going up and up the ladder until he was back on the wall. There his paper airplane was, but there he was on the wall. So he thought, I'm just going to sit here for a minute, rest. He grabbed his paper airplane and he sat on the wall. And he felt that jiggly feeling again. Was it fear? Was it nervousness? What was going on? There was something happening inside of him. And then suddenly, a piece of his shell cracked. And another piece of his eggshell cracked. And suddenly, Humpty was cracking apart as he sat on that wall. And you know what happened? A bird! A bird emerged from Humpty's shell. He stretched out his wings and he took flight, just as he had always longed to. So that is my story today. What's holding you back? What's keeping you off of your wall? What can you do to get back up after the fall?
Let's join together in taking a breath. Breathing in and out. Center yourself in this moment. Put all those worries and anxieties aside as we join together in the spirit of prayer with these words by St. Francis of Assisi. Spirit of life, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O Divine One, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, and it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. May it be so. This is one of the hardest sermons that I've ever had to write or deliver. Partly, it's to do with the fact that right now, in this moment, I'm not entirely sure what to do or say. It's been a real doozy of a week. I joked with a colleague a few days ago and told him I've got nothing for this Sunday. And I asked him if it would be okay for me to just invite everyone into 15 minutes of silence, to take time to worship Quaker style. He said no. Joking aside, though, I feel like each day this week I've rolled out of bed only to put my feet onto the floor and step onto eggshells that crunch beneath the soles of my feet. I found myself waking up in the middle of the night, my stomach turning over. It's been exhausting and hard. There is so much on the line right now in this moment. It's also been an illuminating week. Not that I'm happy about everything this week has revealed to us, but we can't deny that this week has brought a few things into focus. This election cycle has shown us some truths that we need to wrestle with. The first and most obvious to me is the deep division that runs through our country. As I'm recording this on Friday, November 6th, we still don't know who our next president will be. The Electoral College is feeling hopeful, but even there exists a great divide. Turning to the popular vote, we can see that almost half of the votes cast in this election were cast for Donald Trump. A lot of people have bought into his vision of America and have voiced their support for 4 more years of division and falsehood. This is scary, but we can't deny what has been revealed just because it scares us or is hard to accept. There's great strife in our country. And no matter who is named the winner when the dust finally does settle, this strife isn't just going to disappear. The fire of fear has been fanned for 4 years, and those flames still burn. As the light of these flames continues to flicker, I find myself wondering, now what? What is our role in what lies ahead after the election? What do we do with the things that we have learned in this election cycle? As I ask myself these questions, I feel pretty uncertain. I'm not sure. I don't know. 2020 has already challenged so many of the things that we took for granted. COVID-19 came like a monkey wrench jammed into the gears of so many fine-tuned plans. We adapted. Cool. Then the killing of George Floyd brought to the surface the deep-seated racism that still permeates our country. And the appointment of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court has reopened the debate around religious liberty and the right to discriminate against people, LGBTQ folks, or to limit access to birth control and reproductive health care in our country. Y'all, I don't even know what to do with all of this. It hurts. It really, really, really hurts. And yet, despite the pain and the uncertainty, I know that we can't give up. That's the one thing that I do feel certain about right now, is that we cannot give up. No matter who wins this election, we have a lot of work to do. As a people of faith, as Unitarian Universalists, we affirm the worth and dignity of every person and seek to manifest justice, equity, and compassion in our relations. Where is the justice? Where is the equity? Where is the compassion? Asking these questions and yet still being able to point to places where these qualities don't exist is all the proof that we need to show us that we still have work to do. We can look out in the world and find places where compassion does not dwell in the relationships, where inequity reigns, where justice is absent. So what do we do? What do we do when we see those things, when we find ourselves in this moment? I'm not entirely sure. But I do think that one thing we can start to do is to more fully enter the public discourse about the issues that we are facing as a people of faith. We need to claim the space to talk about our religious values in the public sphere. By not speaking in these terms, we continue to let religious conservatives claim moral authority. When we hear people talking about denying access to reproductive rights for religious reasons, we need to prepare ourselves to counter by saying that infringing on someone's bodily autonomy violates our religious liberties. That taking away someone's right to do with their body as they see fit is a violation of our sacred beliefs. When we hear someone say they don't want to provide service to someone because they're gay or trans, whether that's in a bakery or in a hospital, we need to be prepared to respond by saying that discriminating in this way runs counter to our own deeply held beliefs, to our religious values. Making this shift is probably going to be a little uncomfortable. It's going to require us to come out of the religious closet and let people know that we are a people of faith. What is meant by this claim is ours to decide. Whether our faith is in God, the universe, or just each other. That's not the point. The point is to claim our place in the established conversation about religious liberties in our country. As a community of faith, who else is better qualified to enter this discourse? For too long, we have sat on the sidelines and let the scientific community stand in as proxy in these conversations. I think it's our time to enter fully into this dialogue as a people of faith that is informed by science and reason, but a faith nonetheless. We're Unitarian Universalists. We have a very long religious history. And we need to use that history and claim it in a way that allows us to advance the moral conversations in our country. This moment in our country's history is a threshold moment. I believe that 100%. And I believe that how we respond, what we choose to take up in this time, will be how future generations remember us. If we fight for equality, justice, and bring compassion into our relationships, we will be remembered as a people who brought those qualities into the world. If we stand aside and do nothing, we'll be remembered as a people who did not take action when the opportunity presented. I pray that we are remembered as a people who sided with love and were willing to risk a degree of discomfort for the betterment of the world. To the glory of life.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We can feed our every need. Every need. We can feed our every need. Every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way, a new way, a new way, a new way.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again.
Our service this day has ended, but our service to one another and the world begins anew. May we take this time and recommit to the values that we hold deeply as a people of faith.